Women with uterine cancer had a certain pattern in the field, right?
Yeah.
So then he starts seeing the women with uterine cancer. Every one of those women that had uterine cancer had a pattern in the field that was the same. Change the field, you change matter. And we do this in our workshops, and we've seen tumors just like that disappear.
What do you mean change the field then?
Okay, so there's only two components, according to the research, that shows how to change the field. Here's an example. They did an experiment where they took a group of people that were great healers. And they took these vials of DNA and set them out in front of these people, and they said, now listen, this is a mindful function. With all of your intention, we want you to see this DNA wind or unwind in your mind. Just keep seeing it wind or unwind, wind or unwind.
Okay.
So they did it over and over again, over and over again. They checked the DNA. Guess what happened? Nothing. Intention did nothing to change the DNA. Okay. So then they said, okay, open your heart, create an elevated emotion, and just feel gratitude and radiate that feeling of care and love into the field, and let's see if that changes the DNA. They elevate their emotional state. They do it for a period of time. They check the DNA. Guess what happens? Nothing. But when they say to the people, what I want you to do is see the DNA unwind, intention, one frequency, the electrical charge in the quantum field, and feel the emotions you would feel as if it already unwound, elevated emotion, magnetic field in the quantum. Over 20% of the DNA unwound at a remote location. So thought being the electrical charge in the quantum field, feelings being the magnetic charge, how you think and how you feel broadcasts a field. So now, not just any type of field is going to do that. It's got to be coherent. So we practice creating brain coherence. We actually measure it. We practice creating heart coherence. Why? Because once energy moves right up in here, and you can change resentment or frustration or impatience to joy, to freedom, to gratitude, and we're measuring to see if you're doing it. I could say to you, Danica, you're doing it, or I could say, not there yet, got to keep going.
How do you measure it then? Just maybe as a side note?
It's called a HRV, heart rate variability monitor. We put electrodes, and we actually see where we clip things to people's ears.
Okay.
So now when the heart starts regulating, it starts beating like a drum, and it starts to produce a measurable magnetic field that's up to 3 meters wide. Now, that energy is a frequency, and that frequency can carry information, and that information is your thought, is your intent. In other words, the elevated emotional gratitude can carry the thought of your health. The emotion of suffering cannot carry the thought of your health. It carries a different set of thoughts. So you can think positively all you want, and if you're feeling miserable, your mind and body are in opposition. So we teach people how to put these two coherent signatures together. The thought sending the signal out, the feeling drawing the event back. But the more coherent, the more organized the signal, the more connection you have to the field.
By organized, do you mean concise about what you want, or do you mean
like
just being good at it?
No, like rhythmic. So coherence is a synchronization. As an example, when people are under the gun of the fight or flight nervous system, they're living by the hormones of stress, the arousal of those chemicals drives the brain into a faster brain frequency called high beta brainwaves. In high beta, the arousal, you're in survival. What you're trying to do now is control and predict everything in your life. And so you start thinking about your boss, your coworker, your boyfriend. You start thinking about groceries. You start thinking about where you have to go, all the things you have to do, finances. And every one of those things, elements, people, places, has a neurological network in your brain. So as you shift your attention very quickly, you're activating those circuits, and like a lightning storm in the clouds, your brain starts firing very incoherently. And when your brain's incoherent, you're incoherent. At the same time, you're stepping on the gas, your heart's racing because of survival. You're stepping on the brake, like I can't throttle my coworker even though I want to. So you can't fight, and so now the heart starts beating incoherently. So how do we reverse that? So we teach people how to create more order in their brain. And there's a formula that we practice, and when they do it right, the brain starts getting very organized. Those different compartments that were subdivided start to synchronize.
There's a rhythm even to the firing.
Oh, there's like we have unbelievable measurements of rhythm. So now think about it. So now, all of a sudden, those different communities of neurons that were out of sync start synchronizing, and what syncs in the brain links in the brain. And all of a sudden, of a sudden you start seeing more and more neurons start dancing to the same rhythm. They start synchronizing like a symphony. And when that starts to happen, when they start getting more organized, if you think about coherence like a group of people clapping in an audience. Say there's 1,000 people, and you say normal coherence for an average human being would be every 5th person in the audience clapping at the same time.
Right.
Super coherence, what we're measuring, imagine 100 billion neurons all synchronized. So now 1,000 people all clapping at the same time, not only is it creating more order, but it's creating more energy. So now waves start stacking up on top of each other, and all of a sudden you start getting more energy in the brain, more synchronization, and all the areas that were no longer in balance start to come together. And the side effect of that is now the person starts feeling more whole. These different energy centers of the body are centers of information. They have their own frequency, they have their own energy, they have their own little individual brains. Believe it or not, they have their own hormones, their own chemicals.
Wow. You can measure that they have different hormones?
Oh, absolutely.
Each energy center?
Every one.
And there are 7?
There's 7, yeah. Well, there's 8, but 7 ones in the body. So those different circuit boards are under the control of the autonomic nervous system. Now, stress creates imbalance in the autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is switched on for one reason: emergency for preservation. So then you are mobilizing enormous energy to preserve the body, and it should be a short-term thing. The other nervous system, the parasympathetic, is for growth and repair, right? So some people spend the majority of their time living in that high frequency of stress. So then teaching people then how to make a move from that sympathetic system into the parasympathetic system means they have to practice on a daily basis certain fundamental principles. And for me, I think that, more and more people are doing it.
How do you do it?
So, when a person begins to slow their brain waves down, they have to go, when you're in stress, when you're in survival, you narrow your focus on a cause. That's called what's called a convergent focus. So now you're blessing the energy centers of the body. They're under the control of the autonomic nervous system. And when the autonomic nervous system moves out of balance, the brain moves out of balance, right? We narrow our focus on the cause, and it causes each one of these different energy centers to move into incoherence as well. And those little individual brains start moving into incoherence and send an incoherent message to the cells and tissues and organs. Hormones then become downregulated, and the body starts moving out of balance. So when we bless the energy centers, or we reprogram these energy centers, 2 things has to happen. They have to be able to slow their brainwaves down. They have to get out of that high beta state. And the way we do it is to go from a narrow focus to a broad focus. When you open your focus, when you open your awareness, that's what creates coherence in the brain, because you're going against that habit of putting your attention on matter. So there's a convergent focus, which is focusing on matter, and then there's a divergent focus, which is focusing on energy. Well, reality is both particle and wave, matter and energy. So if a person can slow their brainwaves down from beta brainwaves to alpha brainwaves, now they're starting to fall out of their thinking brain right into the home of the autonomic nervous system. If the person can't change their brainwaves, it'll never work, because they're in their neocortex and their thinking mind, right? So that's one thing that has to happen. The second thing that has to happen is that they have to practice both a convergent focus and a divergent focus.
So by the convergent, you're focusing on, let's say I'm going to focus on this
That
energy
center,
center,
right.
right? And then you move your focus to another energy center.
Well, first you focus on that energy center, that's particle, and then you focus on the space around it, that's wave.
Okay.
And so when you open your awareness and you're able to do that and you're in your autonomic nervous system, you can put an intention there, which will create more balance in estrogen, more balance in your sexual organs. You move to your second center, you put your attention there. That's where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So now you're beginning to direct energy into that center. But now you become aware of the space around it. Why? To create coherence in that little brain. Send the coherent message to the cells and tissues. Go to your third center, right in the pit of your gut. Well, there's a huge celiac plexus there, a solar plexus, a lot of connections in there. So now put your attention.
That's a big one.
That's a big one.
Always getting a lot of signs there.
Yeah.
Here and here.
Yeah.
Heart and solar plexus.
Yeah, those are big ones. And you tune into that energy. Then you put your attention in your heart. It has its own individual brain.
Yeah.
And when you make energy here, when energy finally arrives here, guess where it goes automatically? Straight up. We've measured it. So now once you start opening your heart, you get more energy in your heart, you get more energy in your brain.
Got it. Short on time, just go straight to the heart.
That's why we do it. That's exactly that's why we open the heart. So it creates a field and it begins to drive energy of the brain. So now that energy is going to cause the person to have a different consciousness, a different thought pattern, right? And now they're going to be thinking possibility, because in survival, the first three ones are all about survival.
Yeah.
It's really not a creative process of creating from mind. It's more about a more primitive, humanistic part of us, animal part of us. So then there's the thyroid plexus, the pineal gland, the pituitary gland. So we've seen when people create coherence in each one of these energy centers and they do it properly, they know how to change their brainwaves. They get into the operating system. They can master convergent and divergent focus. They're no longer living just this way. They've practiced opening their awareness and focus on energy, becoming conscious of it. And as these brains become more coherent and they start producing different signals to hormones and chemicals and to different glands in the body, that's what's being upregulated to make different expressions.